The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So, been staying away from Commanders content, kind of letting, information trickle in. Haven't been a lot of things to discuss. As you know, they're getting into the dog days of the draft process. And now you're getting down to the nitty-gritty. You're going to start hearing, this is the stretch now where you're going to hear me talking about top 30 visits, top 30 visits, top 30 visits, because that's going to be not necessarily the way we're going to determine who they selected, because I think last year we talked a ton about the top 30 visits, and I think they only selected like one of those guys, if I'm not mistaken, last year, which was Brandon Coleman. I don't think any of the other guys were on the top 30 list. However, I think, and I've told you this in the past, I'm big on the top 30 visits because of what it represents. Not necessarily who they're talking to, although you do want to take that into consideration. It's more so for me, why are they talking to this particular position, or how many guys at said position? And we're off and running with these top 30 visits. And I also want to mention, and we're going to take a look at every single one of those players tonight that they have had top 30s with. Also, I'm going to bring up a couple more names of significance, because these were the only two players thus far that they've met pre-workout for dinner the night before their pro day. So I think there's some significance there as well. And now here's what you got to understand about top 30 visits. You don't want to put too much stock into them, but you do want to acknowledge them. But when you talk about top 30 visits, here are some things that I think you need to consider. One is that a lot of the names that you're going to hear aren't going to be household names. They're not guys that are going to ring a bell necessarily. For the most part, these top 30 visits can be used for various reasons. You can want to talk to a guy that you have every intention of drafting if he's on the board at said pick. Another thing, that's what most people go to is, oh, they must be thinking about drafting this particular player because they talked to him. And that could very well be the case as well. But some teams use the top 30 visits for other reasons, such as, I want to talk to this guy because I don't think he's going to get drafted. And if he leaves a good impression on us and we leave a good impression on him, when it comes time for him to decide where he wants to go, because I've always said this, when you get to the 6th round, if I'm a guy that hasn't had my name called by the 6th round, don't call my name. I'd rather be undrafted at that point, because there's more money involved if I sign somewhere and I get to pick my location and my destination. I get to cherry pick what roster I go to at that point, because if I'm a receiver and I want a chance to make a roster, I don't want a team that's loaded at receiver taking a flyer on me in the 6th or the 7th round because I have talent. I want to go somewhere where it's slim pickings at receiver, and I'm going to have a realistic shot of making their roster, right? So I think there's a benefit in just not getting drafted, and guys have leverage. They can, push up the price a little bit. We've seen in the past here, like 2 years ago, we were 2nd in the NFL in undrafted free agent money spent. If you recall, we spent some big money on some guys, Brooks, the guard. There was another guy that we brought in here It was Rivera's last year. We spent some good money on undrafteds a couple years back. So I think sometimes these top 30 visits are leaning towards that. Like, hey, if you don't get drafted, you know, and they're not telling the prospect that, right? No kid wants to hear I'm not getting drafted. But in their mind, they're thinking, we want to talk to this kid because if he doesn't get drafted, we want to see where his head's at. Because if he makes a good impression on us, we want to make a good impression on him. We want him to be a guy that we can call up as soon as the draft's over and say, hey, we'd love to have you become a member of the Washington Commanders. And because we met with him with the top 30 and he's comfortable with us, he's willing to sign with us over 4 or 5 other teams that may be interested as well. So I think that's a big reason why teams also use their top 30 visits on some of these players, the lesser known players, the guys that they may not have had a chance to talk to at the combine, or a guy that they may feel like, hey, this guy could go under the radar. Let's have a chat with him. Or sometimes, you know, I'm not going to be able to get this guy, but I do want to get to know him just in the event that something happens down the line. You hear teams talk about that as well. So there's various reasons why you could have a guy come in for a top 30. And there's smoke screens, right? There's all kinds of things that you, and I don't think a lot of teams are wasting top 30 visits on smoke screens. There's intention. And then, as we've heard in the past, sometimes there's a question that you want this guy to answer. Like maybe he's got some off the field issues. Maybe, you know, they're big. DQ has talked about being really big on guys' stories, right? How guys come up in the game and, you know, sometimes, you know, their upbringing or something to that effect, and wanting to know how they got to the point that they're at. These are all things that, you know, the team may want to discuss. So I find it interesting. I've had a look at just about every guy that they've had in for a top 30 visit, and I find it very interesting that I've been having some conversations about certain things. Some people have laughed at me and told me, yo, it's March. You tripping on that right now. Da 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 da, yada yada yada. But as I sit here looking at these top 30 visits and trying to dissect the meaning and the purpose behind them, I'm finding myself coming back to the same point that I've been harping on: punt returning. So that's gonna be a real discussion tonight as we take a look at some of these prospects. So with that said, let's pull up the screen, and we are going to have a conversation about these prospects that the Commanders have had in for their top 30s thus far. So let's take a look at this. So the first thing that you should see, so let's see how many names. I think it's 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the first thing that should jump out at you are the 7 names. You see this, the area in the section of the screen where it says top 30 visit. These are all the ones that have shown up, and they're documented somewhere, X, social media, articles that have been written, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the ones that we know of, right? And the first thing that should jump off the screen at you is, of the 7 that you're staring at, 3 of them are tackles. So what should that tell you right now? The only one that jumps and screams at me is Josh Connerly Jr., because they're doing their due diligence on him just in case, in the event he falls to them at 29, right? That was a guy that we talked about at the very beginning of the process. Remember, I did a video over on the Commanders Kings channel, and it was something to the effect of, if these 5 players are available, which one would you take? And a lot of you guys said that you would take Josh Connerly Jr. And I told you guys at that time, at least 2 of those players would be available. I said I guarantee at least 2 of these players will be available. And I think the options, if I'm not mistaken, were the Mizzou wide receiver. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. It was Amarian Hampton, Josh Connolly Jr., James Pierce Jr., and I'm forgetting who the last person was. Was that 5? Connolly, Burden. Thank you guys. Luther Burden, Connolly, Luther Burden, Hampton, Pierce Jr., and there was one more that I had thrown in that mix. I can't remember who it was, but I told you that 2 of the 5 would be available, and I feel really confident about that. I said it then, and I feel even more confident about it now. That said, Connolly is an interesting guy. This is not a strong tackle draft class, but trust me when I tell you, he will not be available at 29. They're just the way the draft works. I've been doing this long enough to know that if there's 2 positions that get pushed up, one in particular that gets pushed up every year, it's tackle, right? Every year teams need tackles. Every year teams need quarterbacks, but teams are very picky when it comes to quarterbacks. They're not just going to pick a quarterback for the sake of picking a quarterback. Teams will pick a tackle for the sake of picking a tackle. They will do that. And you'll see offensive linemen go off the board, 6, 7 of them at a time in the first round just about every year, because teams always need tackles, always. And it'll never change. So whether you think this is a strong tackle draft class or not, doesn't matter. Teams are going to take tackles. And Armin Membo will probably be the first tackle taken. Connolly won't be that far behind, right? Especially with the LSU tackle having shorter arms, he's still going to get taken. He's still going to get taken, right? And Connolly will be right in that mix as the second or third tackle probably taken in this draft, if I had to guess. And he won't be anywhere near 29. But just in case crazy things happen, stranger things have happened, and just in case it does transpire, they want to be prepared, right? So, but move Connolly aside, just the fact that they've talked to 3 tackles out of their 7 visits thus far tells you that they are very intrigued with the tackle position, and they would love to add tackle at some point, whether it's in the draft or as an undrafted, priority free agent. So that's something that should perk up your Commander antennas and make you feel good, because I don't think this tackle, unless it's a first rounder, I don't think he's starting this year. But we would love to have a guy that's a developmental. We don't have a developmental tackle on the roster right now. All of our tackles currently are of age. They've been in the league for quite some time. They're either pushing 30 or above 30. So we're at the point now where we need to have a young 23, 24-year-old tackle, 22-year-old tackle on the roster that they're developing. And again, I told you about the Howard tackle and how I'm hoping that he's a developmental prospect, but I can't be assured of that. And so Aneem Dankwa is a guy that I told you I would love to see them continue to work with, and hopefully he develops into something, but we can't bank on Aneem Dankwa being that guy, right? So they're definitely interested. And also, and look, this is what I do this time of the year. Well, I do this in general, but this is what I especially do this time of the year. I'm looking at all of the interest in tackles, and it could mean nothing. It could mean something. I'm going to err on the side of this is telling me also that they view Brandon Coleman as a guard. Because if you thought Brandon Coleman was your right tackle, while you could still be in the market for another tackle, it doesn't hurt to have another guy, because your swing tackles right now are a guy on the final year of his deal. If, in fact, Coleman is your right tackle, Wiley is your swing tackle. Swing tackle, I use that very loosely. Trent Scott is your swing tackle. I use that very loosely. Both of those guys are on one-year contracts. You don't really have a developmental guy on the roster, someone that you can say is going to be here long term. So there's that aspect and that perspective. Or you could just say, hey, if Coleman's a guard and Wiley's starting at right tackle, you don't have a starting right tackle next year. Why not get a guy, get him in the system, get him, in your program, start working with him, and then next year insert him to right tackle once Wiley is no longer on the roster, assuming that he's not here next year. So I do think this kind of points to Brandon Coleman going to guard. But again, it could mean something. It could mean nothing. So Jared Christian Leichenhan is a guy that he's big. He's a big tackle. I think he's 6'8". Let me check the DNA profile on this guy. Let me get his name right first. But I think he's 6'8", man. He is massive. Which we seem to like doing massive around here. Started out at Colorado, transferred over to Oregon State. Let's check his profile. He's 6'9", okay? 6'9". Started all 12 games this year for the Oregon State program. Played in 33 games from 2021 to 2023 for Colorado. Started 19 of those games. So he's been a starter for the last 2.5 years, roughly, and played a ton of snaps in 2023 for the Colorado Buffaloes, 827 snaps there, and then 815 snaps at left tackle this year. Gave up just 2 sacks and only had 1 penalty on the season. Now, again, he could have been called for more, but only 1 was actually assessed. So he is a big man. All right. So, and he looks like he carries his weight pretty well. I don't really love diving into guys too heavy, especially on the offensive line, if we haven't drafted them. But one thing I can say, they like taller tackles. He's 6'9". We talked about Aneem Dankwa. I think he's 6'7", 6'8". So they like these taller tackles. And I think the other tackle too, the one that they had, let's look at the next tackle. Wyatt Milam out of West Virginia. I don't think he is as tall. But let's take a look-see at Wyatt Milam. 6'6.5". So yeah, he's another big one. 313. He actually tested out pretty well at the combine, and actually is a good tackle in this year's draft class. I haven't had a chance to take a look at the tackle, so this one is really interesting. I'm thinking he's gonna be probably, if you're gonna draft him, a 2nd round pick. He's not gonna be there in the 4th round. I can assure you he won't be there in the 2nd round, or 6th round, or 4th round, excuse me. So 6'6", 313, 6'6.5", 313. 32 and an 1/8 inch arm. So that's a little worrisome. Obviously, the number you're looking for as a baseline in arm length is 33. That's the bare minimum you're looking for. That's pushing it, but you can get away with 33-inch arms. Anything less than that, and it's a crapshoot. It's dicey. So that could push him down draft boards because a lot of teams, that's a no-no for them. So that could allow him to get to the 4th round. But his production and his athleticism suggests that he should be gone in the 2nd round. And I've already told you, teams are usually thirsty and they're willing to overlook certain defects because all teams need offensive linemen. Every team in the league needs offensive linemen. So that's Wyatt Mealum. Let's see. And we know about Josh Connerly Jr. He won't make it to 29. Now, here is an interesting name, Jordan Williams. Jordan Williams is the tackle for Georgia Tech. And what's interesting about him is 6'6", 315. All right. See how many games he played in this year. Let's see. Team captain. Y'all know how they love that, right? Team captain. So there's that. Played in, let's see. Let's see what we got here. I can't see how many games he played in. I hate when they don't update. I hate when they don't update the bios. And it's always a little dicey for, here we go. No, that's not what I wanted. But it looks like he started in 13 games this year. 11 last year, 12. Let's see. I can kind of piece some information together here. It's always a little dicey for offensive linemen if they don't update the bios on the team websites. So he had 10 starts in 2023. He had all 13 this year. So that's 23. He had 12 games started in 2022 as a sophomore. 8 at right tackle, 4 at right guard. So he's got some positional. Ooh, I almost said it. He's got some versatility. 10 games, 9 starts due to so in 2021 as a freshman, 9 starts there. So 9, 21, 31, 44 starts in his career. 11, 19, 28 of them at right tackle. So, and I think at right tackle. So he checks off the right tackle box. They had dinner with Jordan Williams. He is not a top 30 visit, but they had dinner with him. And I think that counts for something. I don't know if Jordan Williams is on the radar to be drafted. Let me check. Let me do a quick sweep on a site real quick to see if he's even listed. I don't think he is, to be honest with you. Yes, he is the 24th rated tackle on this list that I'm looking at. So he could end up not being drafted, obviously. Let's see where Milam is. They might have him listed as a guard because of his arm length. Yeah, Wyatt Milam is listed as the 11th best guard on this list I'm looking at. So his arm length, people are trying to push him inside, and they may give him an opportunity at tackle. Will Campbell is the LSU tackle that teams are struggling with right now as to where to place him. I think somebody's going to give him an opportunity to be tackle first. And I've always said, I'm going to err on the side of giving a guy an opportunity to prove he can before I say that he can't. So that's the tackle situation. Let's talk about the other positions. So you got three tackles, 2 corners, a linebacker, and a receiver. So let's talk about the rest of the guys here quickly. Sean Fresh, a cornerback from Rice. What do Sean Fresh, Quincy Riley, cornerback out of Louisville, and I've got another receiver here, Miles Price. All have in common. Miles Price is another guy similar to Jordan Williams, not a top 30 visit, but one of 2 players to have a dinner visit the day before their pro day, right? Miles Price is a wide receiver out of Indiana, 5'8", 5'9", about 183 pounds. Was at Texas Tech for, I want to say, 4 years before transferring to Indiana for his final year of collegiate ball. And in 2023, Miles Price averaged 23 yards per punt return on 9 returns. So yeah, that's pretty damn good. There may have been one big one in there, even if there's a 76-yarder in there. That's still a lot of yards per return. So Miles Price is a punt returner. Sean Fresh has had 4 years of experience returning punts while at Rice. Quincy Riley has 2 years of experience returning punts while at Louisville. They're looking for a punt returner. This makes me smile, okay? They're singling out guys with the specific trait of being a punt returner in college. Now, of the 3 guys I just mentioned, Miles Price, Sean Fresh, and Quincy Riley, none of them are even close to Miles Price. Price is the standout from a punt return standpoint. But Fresh can also play corner, as you see. Quincy Riley was a really good corner in 2023, had a down year in 2024, but he's still on people's radar as potentially a second-round pick. I think he's probably more suited for the 3rd round. But again, we'll see what happens and how people feel. He had a really good combine. I heard that his pro day was really good as well. So he's probably moving back up, people's board, and he's starting to settle in as a day 2 selection. So he's going to be interesting. But I find it very interesting that Sean Fresh, Quincy Riley, and Miles Price all have significant punt return ability and experience. I don't think that is coincidental. Fresh is what, 5'9"? Like, how many small corners do we possibly need? Which is why I think they're strictly looking at him as an undrafted free agent, priority free agent that they would love to come in here and give an opportunity to return some kicks, right? Same with Miles Price. I don't see Miles Price getting drafted. I think he is strictly going to be here for the purpose of having an opportunity to be that Jamison Crowder type guy, right? And he had some solid production at receiver. But Arian Smith is the one that really jumps off the screen at me. Former Georgia wide receiver. He's way down the totem pole, I believe, at the receiver position this year. And again, I haven't had a chance to lock in on the receivers, but that's the next position that I'm going to gravitate to. But I'm pretty sure Arian Smith is nowhere to be found. And the likelihood is he's going to go undrafted. He had his best season, and Rico would be probably the best guy to have a conversation about. But I can tell you about Arian Smith. He was a guy that they were expecting a lot from at Georgia. It never really manifested into what they thought he should be, what his talents suggest that he should be. However, and I think we can go ahead and close out this screen now. However, Arian Smith finally realized some of that potential in his final year in Athens, over 800 yards receiving, like 4 touchdowns. And he was a huge part of their offense this past year. And in this one season in 2024, he, similar to De'Ami Brown, he eclipsed his whole entire career in one season from a yardage and production standpoint. So this was a big year for him, but it's still probably not going to be enough to get him drafted, more likely than not. And you're talking about a guy with 4.36 40 speed, right? If I'm not mistaken, it's 4.36 or 4.39. Either way, it doesn't matter, right? You're talking about a guy with blazing speed. But let me just get the particulars on him. 4.36, I had it right. 4.36 40 speed at the combine he ran. So this is a guy that can absolutely fly. We need more of that. And I talked about us not having a vertical threat opposite of Terry. He could be the new De'Ami Brown, so to speak. And also, he does have limited, very limited punt returning experience, but some experience nonetheless. Not a lot under his belt, but a little something there. But I wouldn't call it something that you would be really comfortable with putting back there. You'd have to vet him and see if he's comfortable being in that role. But just another guy that is intriguing. And I continue to say that I don't expect them to spend draft capital at wide receiver, although we've talked about this the entire time, and we've talked about BPA, right? Drafting the best player available. And you can't just talk it, you got to live it. And so if the best player available in the second round at 61 overall, if you can't get out and you got to stick and pick. If it's a wide receiver, take the wide receiver, right? And I expect them to do that. Same with the 4th round, right? Hell, same with the 1st round. If Ted McMillan somehow drops to you at 29, do the right thing like Spike Lee. But the likelihood to me is that they don't draft a receiver at all in this year's draft. Instead, they look to go the free agent route, and they're going to be aggressive in that market, I believe, because again, this roster is wide open like it was last year. So I expect them to add another, 7, 8, 9, possibly 10 guys. Because again, we talked about this. I think that the count is up to 74 or 75. You get 90, right? We only have 5 draft picks. Again, I expect them to take that 5, turn it into 7. But when it's all said and done, let's just say best case scenario, you come away with 7 players in this draft. You still have 8 roster spots available that are probably going to be undrafted guys, more likely than not. So again, I think they're doing their due diligence, and I like the fact that they're looking to add guys that can run, that have some speed. I love the fact that they're looking at guys that can return punts, because that's still a question for me. Someone told me KJ Osborne has a background in returning punts. I think it was my guy Red Wings who told me that, which makes me feel good about at least somebody on the roster is capable if we get to that point. But I still want them to explore all options when it comes to punt returner, because I would love to see somebody that is dynamic have an opportunity to do it. And then I'm going to continue to hammer home the point that us signing Michael Gallup does not stop us from going after a receiver at all. Again, he signed for the vet minimum. There is no guarantees there. There's no penalty to moving on from him. Like I said last year, we signed guys in free agency like Anthony Pittman at the linebacker position and James Pierre at the cornerback position. And those guys did not make this team. So just because you sign a guy in free agency does not mean he's going to make the roster. I do think, however, that every receiver that they've signed is going to be here. It doesn't feel like they signed Michael Gallup unless he stinks in camp. Absolutely trash in camp. I don't see them cutting, Michael Gallup. I don't see them getting rid of KJ Osborne. I don't see them moving on from Noah Brown. I expect the guys that they signed to be here next year. And if you look at the guys that they've added, and we talked about the number, it's 6. That's how many receivers they're going to keep on the roster. So right now, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of space or wiggle room at that position. But again, Michael Gallup can come in. An injury could happen. Anything could happen. You never know. You want to be prepared. And so that's why a guy like Arian Smith is really interesting, much more so than the Georgia receiver we took as an undrafted last year, and Rosemy Jack Saint, which I told you was not going to work out here. This guy has a legitimate shot if he were to be here as an undrafted priority free agent. So I think it's very interesting that you see 3 tackles. What that says to me is they are interested in tackle in this draft, whether it actually be them drafting someone or, someone as a priority after the draft, or one of those late round picks being a tackle. We have 2 in the later rounds, obviously right now, 6th and 7th round picks. Those could easily be tackles. Someone said something to me about, or just said something in general. I was looking at the comment section of one of the videos recently, and they were like, why does he always bring it? He was talking about me. Why does he always bring up what the 49ers did? It wasn't John Lynch. Isn't John Lynch their GM? And I'm like, yeah, John Lynch is the GM, but you don't think that Adam Peters has had any input in what they were doing? You don't think Adam Peters had some of what the 49ers did philosophically rub off on him? You don't think that he took things from them philosophically and that he didn't bring some of that to him to Washington? Like, you'd be foolish to think that those things don't matter. Like, that's the equivalent of a quarterback's coach or a wide receivers coach getting a job as a offensive coordinator. You don't think he's going to use some of the plays, some of the terminology that he got from the stop that he was just at before he became the offensive coordinator? You don't think that Eric Bieniemy came to Washington and used a lot of what he learned from Andy Reid? You'd be foolish to think that that wasn't the case. No, he wasn't calling the plays necessarily in Kansas City, but no, he wasn't calling the plays. Although he claims he wasn't calling shit. But he was going to use what he learned in Kansas City. That's a part of who he was moving forward. Same thing with Adam Peters. You'd be foolish to think that his experiences in Denver and New England and San Francisco haven't shaped and molded him. You think it's a coincidence that he went and he plucked 2 veteran Patriots to bring on board that were Belichick guys? You think that's a coincidence? I don't. You know what I'm saying? So ultimately, you got to look at what the 49ers did at the running back position. You got to look at what they did at the tackle position. And generally speaking, they would draft tackles in the later rounds. They did draft Mike McGlinchey. And I want to say he was a first-round pick. But he didn't get a second contract. and they drafted Justin School, I believe, in the 5th round, and they like drafting, mid to late round tackles, develop those guys. Aaron Banks, I believe, was a 2nd round pick as a guard. So they're not afraid to spend, early capital on offensive linemen, as we saw last year with Brandon Coleman in the 3rd round. But it wouldn't shock me if they were looking for a developmental tackle in the 6th or the 7th round. And then running back, I'm starting to rewire my brain because 2 names jumped out at me for the running back position. I'll tell you what those names are in a second. They had 2 Zooms with running backs. They had quite a few Zooms with players, but 2 in particular. Jarquez Hunter, 5'9", 3/8, running back, 204 pounds, out of Auburn, ran a 4.44 40, so ran a Moses Malone 4.44. And then they had a Zoom with Trevor Etienne, the Georgia running back, who ran a 4.42 at 5'8", and so pretty much 5'9", 200 pounds. He's 5'9", 198. So they had Zooms with those 2 guys. Again, as long as you add somebody with speed, I really don't give a shit, to be honest with you. I have a preference. It'd be Jaden Blue out of Texas, but Trevor Etienne, fine by me, right? Just add a dude that can run. That's all I'm asking for. And I'll just tell you this. If it's one of those 2 guys, Jarquez Hunter or Travis Etienne, that they're, looking at, that kind of back, sorry to all of you, we need to replace B-Rob fans out there, but those 2 backs are complementary backs, not every down B-Rob is out of here, they're phasing B-Rob out type backs. So just so you know, just for the record, right? Now, again, doesn't mean anything. They could just be talking to those guys in the event that something pops, but they have their eyes and sights set on, a different back that could have, the capability of being a 3-down back or at least a 1st and 2nd down back, taking away opportunities from B-Rob. So just a little food for thought. You do the dishes, but it's really fascinating seeing how some of this is starting to develop and seeing where their head is, right? And kind of trying to get into their mind and figure out what it is they're looking to do. But clearly there is an emphasis being put on protecting Jaden, which is a good thing. We sat on the Commanders Kings show last night and talked about how unsexy it would be if they drafted an offensive lineman. I'm not the one that feels that way. I know it's not the sexiest thing to draft an offensive lineman. You don't get to talk about 40s. You don't get to talk about catches or interceptions or how many sacks they had. Those are sexy, right? How many rush yards, how many touchdowns they scored. That's sexy. You know what is the ultimate high, though? Protecting the best asset this organization has ever had. That's what's sexy to me, right? That's what gets me feeling really good about this team's future, is taking this offensive line and transforming it into a bully, or at least one that can protect 5 and let him go to work, because we've seen what kind of damage he can do when he's got time back there to survey the field. So I like that they've put emphasis on upgrading the offensive line, and I don't think they're done yet. And so I do like that as well. So I love the fact that they're focused on speed at the running back position. I love that they're focused on finding a punt returning option, at least bringing one in here. That's going to happen now. I feel confident. And I told you, I don't really worry about these guys. I trust that they understand what we do and don't have. They're not stupid and they're not oblivious. Okay. So they know we don't have anybody to return punts outside of KJ Osborne, and maybe they're comfortable with him, but they're going to bring somebody in here. Last year, they had like 9 guys fielding punts during training camp. That may happen again this year. We'll see. But I love the fact that they're already paying attention to that. They're paying attention to speed at the running back. They're paying attention to the tackle market, right? And we may not love him, but Olufemi Oladipo is the lone edge rusher that they've brought in. I am not a fan. I've made that abundantly clear, but they know what they're looking for. I would love to know what they see in him because I don't see it, but I know he plays hard and he is a try-hard guy and he's physical and that's all fine and dandy, but he's not getting to the quarterback and he ain't making no plays. He ain't making any plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage. But he's gonna set a physical edge. And like I said, I kind of feel like it's getting redundant now. We already have Dorrance Armstrong on the roster. We don't need another Dorrance Armstrong. That's what of Olufemi Oladipo feels like to me is Dorrance Armstrong. I've already said that my comp for Olufemi Oladipo is Dorrance Armstrong, which is why I think they like him because they love Dorrance. They love what Dorrance brings to the table. And Olufemi has a lot of the same qualities and traits that Dorrance Armstrong has. You know, I'm just not a massive fan of what he, has in his move Rolodex right now. But he's twitchy. I'll tell you that. He's very twitchy, very physical, one of those rough, rugged edge rushers. But again, I'm good on that guy. I've seen these dudes come into the league. Literally, he's really starting to garner PTSD in me. He's really starting to have that work its way to the forefront because he's given me damn, I always forget his damn name because he stinks. The Alabama edge rusher we drafted in the second round. And I remember like it was yesterday, him talking about how, because he tested poorly and Doc Walker got all excited because he said they don't play, they don't play football in shorts and a t-shirt. I'm physical. And when they snap that football, I kick ass and take names. Some bullshit like that. And I was like, all right, we gonna see. Yeah, Anderson, stinking ass. He reminds me a lot of him. Physical guy, will set a physical edge, but ain't gonna do shit else. Ain't gonna do shit else. So we'll see what ultimately. Somebody asked, was Dorrance Armstrong a fourth round pick? I think he was somewhere in that neighborhood, but remember, Dorrance Armstrong had a pretty decorated collegiate career. Dorrance Armstrong at Kansas was getting it in from a production standpoint. His problem was he tested really poorly. Like he ran a 4.87 or some shit like that. And his 3-cone was nasty. And he didn't have the athletic profile of a guy that was going to be extremely successful at the NFL level as an edge rusher. And so far, he's really exceeded what people thought he was going to do based on the testing numbers. But the production was there in college, and that translated to the NFL. And I've always liked Dorrance as a guy that could kick inside. And I think they think Olufemi can kick inside as well. But there's no production. And again, I struggle with guys who don't have production at the collegiate level. So, again, you got to be a guy like Rico said. I thought he put it very well. He said it very eloquently. When teams take a flyer on a guy or teams spend a first-round pick, a high-level, draft capital on a guy that had little to no production at the collegiate level, part of the reasoning is what you see in the NBA a lot of times when a guy is a lottery pick but didn't have a successful collegiate career is, hey, no. This guy's got pedigree. This was a 5-star recruit. This was a guy that was supposed to be one of the best basketball players in the nation, and it just didn't work out. And now he's in the NBA draft 1 year later. I didn't forget about what he looked like as a high school senior. I know what this kid is. I watched him tear it up at Indiana in the Indiana high school circuit. I watched this kid tear it up in all of these AAU, programs. And I watched him at all these camps with all the elite prospects in the nation. I know what this kid can do. Same thing with college football players. You 5-star recruit, you go somewhere, it doesn't work out. You transfer again, it doesn't work out for whatever reason. But the talent is definitely there. I may be willing to overlook some of that. Or you go somewhere and it doesn't work out from a production standpoint, like a Shamar Stewart. I don't know. That's something that I'm just not willing to do, like with Olafemi Oladipo. So anyway, I digress. So let's see what they ultimately decide to do. I'm not going to pigeonhole them into saying that that's who they're going to take in the draft, but where there's smoke, there's fire, and apparently they really like Olafemi Oladipo, and they were at his pro day. They met with him at the combine. They had him for a top 30 visit. So again, there's something there. Like they're going out of their way at every stop to lay eyes on this man, to talk to this man. And again, he's probably a guy that is a hard worker, try hard guy. Going to give maximum. They love that type of shit. They eat that shit up. But you know where I'm at mentally. I ain't like if you're talented and and you check all those boxes, great, even better, right? But I'm not looking for the Boy Scouts anymore. Not looking for the guys who are great locker room. But I say that out of one side of my mouth. And last year we had a bunch of great locker room guys, and they weren't the most talented. But because we had a great locker room full of selfless guys, look where that shit got us. So you got to be careful what you ask for. I want talent, though. At the end of the day, I want talent. So we'll see what they ultimately decide to do with him. We're going to get to the comment section, and then I'm going to get you out of here. But before I do that, let's get to a word from one of our sponsors briefly, and then we'll come back on the other side and get to the comment section. What's going on? It's your man Louie T here on behalf of Mando. New year, new me. That's right. It's 2025, and I left some things in 2024. Let's see. Baggage, losing of any kind, and of course, odor. That's right. Funk is not traveling with me in 2025. And you know what I brought with me to ensure that didn't happen? That's right. I brought Mando. Here's why. Whole body deodorant that's safe to use anywhere on your body. Pits, package, grundle, feet, belly button, butt crack, stomach folds. Anywhere funk travels, anywhere with hair, Mando can go there. Attacks odors aggressively. Clinically proven to control odor for up to 72 hours. Available in 4 cologne quality scents. Bourbon leather, Mount Fuji, Clover Woods, and my personal favorite, Pro Sport. So listen up. Your man Louie T has a deal for you. If you're a new user, right, use the promo code LouieT. Head over to mandopodcast.com/LouieT to get you 40% off, right? $5 off. That's 40% off of a Mando starter pack that includes a stick deodorant, a cream tube deodorant, and 2 free gifts of your choice, like wipes or something along that line. Look, you can't go wrong with Mando. If you're looking to kill and conquer odor in 2025, what are you waiting on? Get Mando. That's shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Use the promo code LouieT, or you can go to mandopodcast.com/LouieT. Either way, that's going to get you that $5 off. That's 40% off of their starter pack. Look, man, I wouldn't lead you astray. And some of y'all were funky in 2024. I'm going to keep it a bean. Some of y'all were funky and raunchy in 2024. Here's your answer in 2025. Get you some Mando. All right, so let's get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say, and then we will get out of here. JLG, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Thank you for getting the night kicked off. Who writes, thoughts on taking a tackle in the first round? I guess we believe in the Howie Roseman school of taking trench players early. Could be Connerly at 29. again, I'm willing to bet that Connerly is not available at 29. That is my guess, because again, tackles get pushed up the draft board. They do not get pushed down. I don't care how down of a year it is for the tackle position. All the more reason for teams to reach in and grab theirs early before they're all gone, the ones of value. So in my mind, Connerly is gone somewhere in the teens, right? 15, 17, 19. It's always a team that needs a tackle, always, right? Trust me, someone's going to take Josh Connerly Jr. You might not love him. And every time I look up, someone's running him over, right? Nick Green ran him over at the Mike Green ran him over at the Senior Bowl. I was watching the game, and a dude literally shocked him and took him off his feet. He was out there looking like a Vegas showgirl, legs in the air like this, kicking around and shit. So he's definitely a guy that could use a little bit more sand in the trunks, but somebody's going to take him. I don't think he's going to be there at 29, but I do love the mentality. I do love the mindset of, hey, we need to get stronger. We need to get better. We need to be more productive in the trenches. And most importantly, we need to protect Jaden Daniels. I'd love to talk about opening up holes in the running game, this, that, and the third, but when it's all said and done, it's all about protecting Jaden Daniels. You want to run the football. You want to be successful there, but it's more about protecting Jaden Daniels than anything else. Like Laramie Tunsil, he's a solid run, blocker. Nothing to write home about. Where he absolutely excels is as a pass protector. And that's why they went out and got him. So that's what it's about. Gotta fight fire with fire. You can't beat them, join them, right? They drafting tackles and they beefing up their front. So do we. That's what we need to do. That's the team in the division that we chasing after. We gotta strengthen up our lines of scrimmages, right? We got to get stronger in the trenches on both sides, which they've obviously looked to do this offseason with a lot of the free agency moves. Just Andre, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, last year they drafted one player from the 30 visits. Yeah, and that was Brandon Coleman. Like I said, I think he was the only one. I don't think they met with Jordan McGee. I do not think they did that. But I don't think they met with anybody else that they ultimately drafted. So that's why I'm telling you, I don't know if I'm more so focused on the positions and how many. I talked about that last year because that's what led me to believe, okay, they're going to draft a linebacker because they had interviewed so many linebackers for the top 30 last year. I knew they were going to take a tackle. They interviewed like 6 or 7 tackles last year. It was the most of any position last year was the tackle position for the top 30 visits. So I knew they were going to get a tackle. I knew they were going to get a linebacker. There were like 4 or 5 of those. I think the linebacker was the second, most interview position for the top 30. So that's what I'm more so focused on, not the actual player itself. Because if you look at the guys that are on the list right now, only 2 of them right now probably are getting drafted. 3 of them. The corner from Louisville is getting drafted. Quincy Riley is getting drafted. So let me walk that back. 4 guys are getting drafted on this list as of right now. Josh Connerly Jr. is getting drafted. Wyatt Mealham is going to get drafted more likely than not. Olafemi Oladijo is getting drafted, and Quincy Riley is getting drafted. So 4 out of their 7 visits right now are guys that should get drafted. The other 3 are probably guys that are going to be undrafted. So just, that's for whatever it's worth, right? So I'm not as hung up on who as much as what positions. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Chris, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, C-Mac, writes, hey, Lou, what's up, Chris? Says, hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise, as always, really appreciate you. He writes, 3 questions. 1, First of all, thank you so much for the generosity, man. Really, truly do appreciate you as always, man. You are a rock in terms of your support for the Louie T Network. Can't thank you enough. One, besides character and personality being important, what specific questions do you think Peters is asking top 30 visit players and why? 2 and 3, do you see a scenario of them trading up in rounds or 1 for whom and why? No, I do not see them trading up. Again, if they were to trade up in any round of this draft, it would literally scream that Adam Peters does not believe in this year's draft class. And I just refuse to believe that he's going to absolutely punt on the 2025 NFL draft, because the fact that he's divulged so many resources into trading for guys kind of speaks to him wanting to take advantage of the window that has opened with Jaden's success in his rookie season. But it also, I think, speaks to, I feel like this isn't a draft that I'm going to hurt as much for those draft picks, but I just refuse to believe that we don't come out of this draft with at least 7 players. So I see them trading back. If they trade up and we come out of this draft with 3 or 4 players, and you're giving up, we've already given up 2 picks in next year's draft. I don't see them wanting to give up more. So I'm going to say that there's no chance that they trade up in round 1 because of what that costs. You're giving up precious capital in this year's draft. And again, if you see a guy that you absolutely love and you think he is a foundational piece that you want to add to your mix, I'm all for it. You know, I told you I'm going to be all in on whatever it is they decide to do, but I just find it hard to believe. The only trade I see taking place is them trading back. I don't see them trading up. As far as what are they asking these prospects on these visits, I think one of the biggest questions is, do you love ball, right? What does football mean to you? DQ has told us some of the questions that they ask. What's your why, right? They want to know about the man. Like, that's big for DQ and Adam Peters. What's behind the rib cage, as he always likes to say, right? What's behind that breastplate? They want to know what makes you tick. And so these are the type of questions that they're asking. They want to know about your leadership qualities. They want to know if you're a great fit for this organization. If we bring you in here and we don't guarantee you anything, but we give you an opportunity, what does that mean? And they want to hear, that's all I'm looking for is a chance, is an opportunity, right? That kind of stuff. Well, what was your role at such and such? For instance, Jordan Williams, the tackle at Georgia Tech. What was your role at Georgia Tech? He was a leader. He was a captain, right? Talk about how you gain the respect of your teammates. What were some of the things you did? Give me some examples of some things that you did to show leadership. These are the type of things that I think they're asking, and they're trying to get clarity on with these guys. So, and then obviously they're going to ask some football questions, right? Why do you think you would fit in, and they're going to put guys up on the board, maybe ask them a little something about, if we give you this look and, depending on, offensive, defensive side, things of that nature, that stuff's going to come up as well. But I think they're really, really interested in who you are as a person, your story, your background, and then obviously, why is it that you play football? What's your why? And how will you assimilate yourself to this locker room if we were to bring you in here, right? Those are the types of things that I think they're asking. Tony P, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. If you're out there and you haven't had a chance to do so already, please hit the like button. As there are over 370 of you out there right now, only 102 likes. We can do so much better than that. And remember, it doesn't cost you a thing to hit the like button, but it helps this channel grow exponentially. If you haven't already hit the sub button, please do that and subscribe for more great content. Turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Tony P, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, "Hey Lou, Arian Smith dropped over 10 passes in 2024. He did. And again, this was a breakout year for him, over 800 yards, but he did have an issue with drop passes. Every Georgia game that I watched, he dropped at least a pass. So I am well aware of his. And again, I love the speed because I liken him. You know, I'm tell you who he reminds me a lot of from that perspective, not size-wise or anything like that, but just from an inconsistency-wise standpoint. He reminds me a lot of MVS. You know, that doesn't stop MVS from getting work in this league and getting opportunities. MVS will drop the football on your ass in a heartbeat. But you know what MVS can do? He can run. And you know what Arian Smith can do? He can run. And if you can run, there is a place for you in this league, whether you're catching it at a high clip or not. Because one thing you cannot teach someone to do is pick them up and put them down. And he can do that. And if he can, like Will Fuller, I'm a massive Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan. Will Fuller used to drive me insane because he was so damn fast. One of the best deep ball guys we've seen in the NFL the last 10 years was Will Fuller. He was right there amongst the Tyreek Hills and the Deshaun Jacksons and guys that can stretch the football field vertically. Will Fuller was right there with them, but his ass would drop the damn football. But that didn't stop teams from giving Will Fuller opportunities, because if you can get behind the defense and get big plays, there's something to be said about that. He said, at one time he led the nation in drops. My choice is Ty Felton, who ran a 4.37 and is a physical wide receiver. Look, he's right in their backyard. Ty Felton out of Maryland, right in their backyard. I would assume that they've done all the homework there. They know what he is, and there's options. But again, Arian Smith isn't getting drafted. This is the point you're missing. I already told you, I don't think, and I'm not sure what's going to happen, Tony P. But I'm telling you, I don't think they're looking to spend any resources at the receiver position. I don't think that's what they're looking to do. I think that Arian Smith is an option for the reasons that you just noted, for the lack of production throughout his collegiate career. For all of those reasons, he's not going to be drafted. And that's why they're talking to Arian Smith, because again, if he doesn't go, if he goes undrafted, and I don't think he's going to be drafted, they want to be right there in line when he starts deciding on where he wants to go. They want to be right there first in line. So Ty Felton is going to require a draft pick, and it's probably going to require your 4th round draft pick. Are they willing to spend a draft pick on a wide receiver this year? I don't think so. And if they do, it'll be in the 6th or the 7th round. And oh, by the way, I know some of you said you don't want them to draft a place kicker. They're very interested in Borgales, the kicker out of Miami. They've met with him 3 times already. Okay. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying they're going to bring in competition. They signed Zane Gonzalez to the same exact deal they signed Michael Gallup to, a 1-year vet minimum deal, which means you are not guaranteed anything here, buddy. So they're bringing in competition, and I think it's going to be of the young kicker variety. And again, I don't know if they're going to be willing to spend a draft pick on Borgales, but I wouldn't be shocked if they took a kicker. Knowing the type of football we play and how we lost a game last year because of the kicking game, how we almost didn't advance to the divisional round because of the kicking game, I expect them to do something there. There will be competition brought in. So there is that. LT, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. LT writes, we sweeping the division. None of y'all moving the needle. I can't speak for what you're going to do to the other teams in the division. I don't really give a damn what you do to the Giants or the Cowboys. But I can tell you this much: you ain't sweeping us. I can tell you that right now. You take that to the bank. You won't sweep us. But I actually think you're going to take a step back this year. But, we'll see what happens. It's a long time between now and the season starting. I don't really have the energy to go back and forth with Eagles fans right now about what is or isn't going to happen we still trying to put together the pieces of our roster and figure out what we're going to actually look like. So I can't tell you this, that, or the third, but I know I can tell you this. I don't have the energy to argue with you about what we are or aren't going to do at this point. But I feel really confident that when the opportunity presents itself, we're going to take care of business. So there's that. We got an Eagle killer on our team now. You might have heard of him. His name's Deebo Samuel. Who? Debo. I'm gonna just tuck mine in. Hey, LT, don't go cry. Hey, you better not cry in the car either. Anyway, I digress. That was the last super chat, so we're going to get out of here. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow with the last, and I don't know if you guys have been checking out the Draft Prospects 101 series, but I've gone through my rankings of the running backs from 20 all the way down to 6. I'll give my top 5 running backs in this draft class tomorrow night, and I will give an overview of the running back position before we move on to edge rusher. So be on the lookout for that video tomorrow. But in any event, I got another super chat. Just Andre, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? Sampson, Harvey were captains, and Donovan E was a multi-year captain. Oladipo wasn't. Thoughts on Auburn linebacker Eugene? Again, those are things that you need to take into consideration when talking about these prospects, but it's not the end-all be-all. Every guy drafted last year wasn't a captain on their respective teams, but 6 of the 9 guys were captains. So again, take that with a grain of salt and understand that they are looking for guys with those leadership qualities, guys that are going to come in and add value to the locker room, not just from a talent perspective, but from a character and DNA makeup perspective. They are looking for leaders on and off the field. They feel like that makes up the brotherhood. And you talk about a culture being set last year. Part of that is resetting that culture because so many guys are not going to be here from last year. And you're not necessarily turning the roster over as much as you did the year previous because you brought so many of those free agents back, which we expected them to do. But there's still going to be at least 20 new faces in that locker room, right? From draft picks, undrafted guys, and the guys you signed as free agents. We signed probably 8 to 10 new free agents. Let's see if we can count some of them up. Nate Herbig, Dietrich Wise, Javon Kinlaw, Jonathan Jones, Will Harris. That's 5. Got Debo now. You got, obviously didn't sign these guys, but they're still new to the locker room. And you have Laramie Tunzel at 7. Michael Gallup is 8. You got Eddie Goldman is 9. You got Jacob Martin is 10. So there go 10 guys right there. Probably missing 1 or 2 guys. Feel like I hit most of them. So that's 10 guys right there that are brand new, plus the 5 draft picks as of right now. That's 15 new faces. And I think you're gonna have at least 1 or 2 of these undrafted guys make the roster, is my guess. So this roster is gonna look vastly different than it did a season ago, obviously. I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. So they want guys that are going to come in here and assimilate themselves well. And so I don't think you should discount what I don't think you should discount what being a captain and having those leadership qualities mean, and how much weight they put on that. As far as Oladipo, if they like him as a player, they'll take him to whether he was a captain or not. They clearly they like him. There's something about him that is intriguing to them. So I don't think it matters with every single prospect. They clearly like something about Oladipo. So, and I can't talk about the Auburn linebacker Eugene. I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him yet. So that'll be one of the last positions I get to. I'm gonna be honest with you, because one, I don't see us really doing anything at the linebacker position, and two, this isn't a great linebacker draft class. So, but I'm gonna get around to it. I'm gonna try to get around to it, because there are some guys, the Schlesinger guy, linebacker out of UCLA. Obviously the Alabama linebacker Campbell. I think you could even look at Jalen Walker as a off the ball linebacker, but I think teams see him as a guy that can rush the quarterback too. So I mean, there's some guys, but it ain't a ton of them in this draft. So there's that. Anyway, I digress. You guys, go ahead, take care. Woo! Get out of here. We will be back tomorrow. I think I was talking about the running backs. We'll finish that group up and talk about the running back position as a whole, and then start that process of transitioning to edge rushers, and continue to rapidly get through these positions. Tight end and wide receiver will be the next two that we'll knock down. We'll get to corners, et cetera, and we'll really move at a pretty rapid rate of speed as we're getting close to the month of April. So with that said, you guys enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you guys next time. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. You guys take care. And as these top 30 visits continue to amass and accumulate, I will bring them to your doorstep like I did last year. We will continue to talk about the significance of these top 30 visits, what they mean, what they represent, and if there is significance behind some of these visits. Till then, you guys have a good one. Peace.